Laughter should have rounded out the day. One final sip. The journey back to Portland was rather sleepy for my business partner, Chris, and me. However, rather than that, as I stared at a terrifying number in my San Diego hotel room, I froze. $9,200. Gone. Forget about it. I had just opened my banking app to pay the hotel charge. Beyond that, I did not seek out anything else. Call out to Chris while my voice quivers. As he was getting his trip pack ready, he quickly turned around. I am not sure. I misplaced the one I use and all of my money. Curious, he cautiously approached until the screen materialized. Subsequently, his breathing halted as well. Olivia. What the fuck? A 3-day ago period, my account balance surpassed $10,000. The day before my little brother was married, I had made sure. I always double check. Now though, just $985 remained. Chris immediately retrieved his phone and checked the transaction history once his head kicked into legal gear. What on earth? There were 3 major transfers. The events of the night before. A credit card in the name of my elder sister, Lacey Walker, had $3,000 deposited to it. Her spouse, Travis Walker, got $2,000. The amount of $3,700 to Margaret Morgan, my mother. By 11:43 p.m., all was approved. While I was in the shower, I got myself ready to go to bed. At the time I said it, the words, "I didn't do this," were almost garbled. Unauthorized individuals have obtained access to your account, Chris informed, his voice betraying his anxiety. Contacting the bank is a good idea. At this particular moment, at the same second he spoke it, my phone started ringing. No, that was my mom. It was mesmerizing. The timing seemed just bizarre. Chris and I looked at each other. After that, I started climbing. My sweet Olivia. She spoke with a lively conversational tone. I just wanted to say thank you again for yesterday. Zach felt nothing but happiness. You were wonderful. Mom, I choked out, my voice shaking from trying so hard. It seems like you had already deducted money from my account. A stop was then made. She laughed afterwards. Oh my, it was less than we had expected, you know. My lips froze as I attempted to utter a word, but nothing came out. Lacey mentioned that you had saved up a significant amount, Mom insisted, so we decided to split it up. I mean, for the nuptials. The reception tip was going to be charged to Travis's card, and I needed to chip in to help pay it. Nothing major has happened. Not really a big deal. I started to shake. As Chris approached, I put the phone on speaker. I murmured, "That's theft. You stayed silent about it." "Oh, come on," my mom said in a harsh tone. "We're connected. You act as if all of your money belongs to you, Liv. It's ridiculous. Having said that, you are single right now. You have an admirable income. You must, of course, help out." Chris stepped in at that point. This is Chris, the guy who is seeing Olivia. As an attorney, I can tell you that what you've done is illegal. You secretly transferred money out of her bank account without her consent or knowledge. Doing so is against the law. Oh, great. My mom's tone abruptly changed. Excuse me, but would you kindly refrain from interfering with my private affairs? Her voice cut off the call. While staring at the phone, I had the distinct impression that I had stepped into a nightmare. Chris approached me, reaching out to take my hand. It was enough to make me blush, my voice barely above a whisper, as I said, "I prefer to hear it straight from the source. We were on our way to your parents' house." He said nothing. I felt a pounding heart as I rushed into a parallel reality where the people I cared about had become nameless, faceless strangers with access codes. No one uttered a word the whole way there. 30 minutes later, I could see the house I had grown up in. I hurriedly made my way to the front porch and jingled the bell while Chris wasted no time knocking. Nicholas, my dad, was the one who opened the door. "I thought you two departed earlier today," she said, her voice laced with surprise when he spoke Olivia's name. Ignoring him entirely, I strode directly into the living room. On the other hand, my mom sat and drank tea like any other Saturday afternoon, and Travis discovered Lacey sitting on the couch with him. They all stopped talking the second they saw me. All eyes were on Lacey. "How did you get into my account?" "Your password is secure and will never be changed," she said, shrugging. "It appears like you left your phone unlocked in the bathroom. A piece of cake." Looking at her, I stared, and the idea that I should have given my approval before. "You took nearly $10,000. You didn't even think about that." On the couch, Travis spread out his arms and rested. "You live in a lovely apartment on your own. You travel. You don't have children. We have important business to attend to. Soak it all in." My hands were visibly clenched. Money wasn't the only thing at stake. A fundamental human right it was. "You committed larceny," and I said, "Don't try to justify this," while clenching my jaw. The way Mom waved her hand was like swatting a fly. "Take a seat, Olivia. Avoid making this a contentious issue. You are quite welcome here. We engage in borrowing. We specialize in lending. You can't avoid it." Chris made a break for it. It wasn't a loan at all. It was gaining access to a private account. That is also against the law. With his head firmly planted in the newspaper, my dad finally spoke. "Young man, you should not let the police get involved in family matters." That broke my heart. No one spoke. Major Fishers, however, were present. Nobody ever called me a daughter. Indeed, in this exact room. To think that I was ever an ATM is laughable. Under his breath, Chris said, "Let's go," and he gently patted my back. From behind me, Lacey shouted as I turned to go, "We needed it more than you did, so quit acting and work hard. You'll be able to pay it back in no time." Away I turned. She honestly believed that. Totally without shame. "I am not interested in interacting with any of you," said I. "Please never again contact me." Once we returned to the car, I completely lost it. I broke down and cried into the wheel. Meanwhile, Chris gently massaged my back. "What they did, it's not just wrong," he muttered to Olivia. "That's illegal." "No," I responded. I knew this beforehand, yet comprehending and believing. The two are distinct from one another. I just couldn't bear to look at them, so I turned my back and we left the house silently. I stared out the window as Chris raced away, pretending I wasn't in San Diego, and I watched the city streets fly by, all the while dwelling on the same shadowy core. They had no business informing me. They had no regrets. They tried not to hide it at all costs. I had only been a useful addition. As soon as I discovered the truth, they started to cast me as the villain. Back at the hotel, I drew my knees up to my chest and sat on the bed while Chris stalked the room. His rage subdued but real with a ferocious edge that he kept under control. "You need to report this," he finally told Liv. "Who is it for?" I inquired without feeling worried. "There was that bank. Law enforcement authorities. I can get anything for you, no matter what it is." "Misleading advertisement. There has been a theft. It makes no difference that it's your family." "But wait, there's a catch," I said. "They are my relatives." I trusted Chris completely. I knew it deep inside. The agony, nevertheless, would not subside. The anguish that surfaced was not intended. You were destined to be loved by them. Little things like Lacey's desperate phone calls requesting a little help just before her rent was going to increase stuck in my mind. Mom nonchalantly suggested borrowing a few $100 to pay for the dentist's bill. Even though he never said anything negative, my dad always went along with my idea that I would pay for the Christmas dinner. In my mind, I was being really generous. Then it hit me, I was genuinely contributing to something bigger. It seems that I was only used as an excuse. The following day, Chris rose early to make some calls. By the time I had showered and changed into my clothes, he was already seated at the desk laptop, propped up against a stack of notes. A chat with a coworker was something he brought up. A case like this has already been handled by Sonia Chen, who specializes in financial crime. Solely in this manner, it was shocking, and I couldn't help but cry out. You would be surprised at how often that happens, especially to women like you, who are the earner, the only breadwinner, the responsible one. Your family see you as a rich source of opportunity. I settled down and took a seat next him. Documentation, she says, is paramount, Chris said. We have to collect everything, transfer history messages, emails, bank records. We moved forward in that way. Over the next 4 hours, I perused my online banking account. With passing moments, every single entry brought back a memory. The words gift and loan kept transporting me to the same disturbing truth. Over the last 18 months, I have paid them more than $15,000. $1,200 for Harry's iPad. Margaret's dancing studio tuition is $2,100 and $2,800 to pay down their mortgage for the one time. Shame and pressure remained on each occasion. If your love for your niece was genuine, consider your sister's offspring. We really need it and you don't. Chris was across from me. Quiet down, quickly. I got the impression that even he was surprised. Remarking, this wasn't helpful. I pointed out that manipulation was at play. The equilibrium was missing. It's exploitation, Chris said. They hadn't asked for $9,200 before, but this was their first attempt at not asking. He was right. Their first plan was to keep me in the dark. In the absence of my banking app, I would have been totally oblivious. Even so, that realization. The tide turned at that moment. Later that afternoon, Chris phoned Sonia again, and she agreed to meet with us that evening. As she greeted us, her grip was kind yet firm. Bob cuts his hair short and sharply pointed, in a flash. Apparently the kind of woman who gave careful consideration to each and every detail. The victim, Olivia, claims that this is typical of family financial abuse. Just because someone is your kin doesn't mean they're immune to it. In fact, it makes things worse. My explanation was that I feel guilty. I said as much. Like I'm causing a rift in my family. Sonia watched me closely. Would you tell your partner to just forget about it if he was the victim of a workplace robbery? No, imagine if it was his own mother who was found to be the thief. I was apprehensive, saying who they are is irrelevant, she continued. Any wrongdoing is wrong. You have the right to set boundaries. My nod came slowly. Her words had no effect on the agony. Nevertheless, the reality was clarified. I had a restless night's sleep. I slept out in bed, gazing up at the ceiling, while listening to the buzz of the air conditioner and Chris's breathing. Yes, I felt sad about the money too, but that wasn't all. I was being killed by the illusion. Imagining one's loved ones as a protective barrier. That was unconditional love. Betraying someone is impossible for blood. The next day, we formally reported the fraudulent transactions at the local branch of my bank. An agent from the fraud division listened, looked into it, and wrote it up. What followed was the trickiest component. My younger brother Zach is this guy. He had just become a husband. There was probably his honeymoon stuff in his suitcase when it happened. I needed more information, though. The question of whether or not he was involved was also pressing. He was able to climb up on the third ring. "Oliva, where are you?" he said. He appeared surprised. He commented, "I thought the plane had landed, so I thought you were." "Zach, I told him I had to talk to you." My tone appeared to frighten him. "Yeah, what's the matter?" "Did you pull $9,200 from my account?" I said. "Were you aware of the funds?" Then came a long silence. "Hey, who's Zach?" Whispering, he said. I was unaware of the precise amount. Still, something told me they were plotting something. Lacey and Mom were whispering about it as they were eating dinner. I pleaded with them, begging that they not accuse me. I figured being on the sidelines wouldn't be my problem. I was blissfully unaware. No problem at all. It was clear that he knew. "Okay, Olivia, I'm sorry. To be honest, I wasn't sure they could pull it off. The wedding had to be picture perfect. It was my only wish." I took a long breath. Despite being forceful, my tone remained calm. I was the victim of their thievery. Additionally, I planned to take legal action. Even if you couldn't stop it, you still have time to choose wisely. In the event that this goes to court, you had best tell me the truth. His response was delayed. Finally, he managed it, although his voice was weak and shaking. "All right then." I merely stared at the TV after hanging up the phone. Chris ran his fingers across my palm. "Do you mind if I do this? As if I've just destroyed the one remaining bridge," I murmured to myself. In my opinion, the fire was essential. As soon as we got back to our Portland flat, the silence had vanished. Quietness was non-existent. A pulsing quality permeated the stillness. It seemed as if reality itself had collapsed. I found myself in the kitchen, clinging to a cup of tea that I had totally forgotten to drink. My hands were still, and it was obvious. Ugh, my body is a real pain. Meanwhile, Chris sat at the table and flipped through documents. "Excuse me, but this is all the information you retrieved from your bank," he said, passing a PDF me, listed in chronological order. Those past 3 years. The length of the list was shocking to me. Page after page of transfers. There are a few that bear names. There are a few that use vague terms like gift, school fund, or emergency. Some patterns became apparent. Every 6 months, a new request comes in. And now we have even another reason, an absolute need. Despite my initial hesitation, I had repeatedly answered affirmatively. I used to think I was giving because of it. I was starting to question whether it didn't only make me easier. Across the table, Chris slid another folder. This one had Sonia's notes, which categorized our legal options as follows: digital fraud, unlawful access, and financial abuse. "Olivia, this is real. This isn't just a bad memory or an oversight. Their deeds amount to a crime," Chris remarked as he drew nearer. I agreed, nodding in agreement. Very mechanically, I must admit. As I kept talking, I glanced up at him. "If someone stole $9,200 from your bank account, would you report it?" He arched an eyebrow. "Definitely." I asked, "What if that strange person was actually your mom?" I wanted to know. His uncertainty deepened as he nodded again. What transpired would remain unchanged. My eyes dipped back down to the list once again. Among the items on it were a $1,600 wedding cake, orthodontic costs, mortgage payments, and my name. I was 100% responsible. Anyway, they acted like that wasn't enough. The purchase for Travis's wristwatch, $750, hit me the hardest. I saw it at the wedding. It seemed familiar. I proudly said that I was the one who had to pay for it. Chris cast an upward glance. I bought the watch that Travis was wearing without being aware of it. My laughter was devoid of mirth. I bet they're still saying to each other that I'm selfish and wearing the stuff I bought them. Chris stood up from his seat and knelt down beside my chair. Pay attention, he said confidently. That's not selfish of you. Feel the weight of exploitation. Countless times. They are punishing you for setting boundaries now that you have finally said no. Choking was my result, but they are my relatives. He bowed his head. The main reason it hurts more is because no one is watching out for your safety. Anyone can steal from you or tell you a lie. No, I responded. I knew this beforehand. Sonia called later that night to see how things were going. She was polite and professional throughout. I've written the initial grievance, she announced. The Financial Crimes Division will conduct a preliminary investigation after we submit interview relevant parties. Freeze questionable accounts and issue subpoenas if necessary. My throat tightened. Will they be prosecuted? The outcome is subjective, but a first offense may result in probation and reparation if the offender is cooperative. However, the process must commence. My pulse was pounding, and I nodded anyhow despite her blindness. Chris sat down beside me, and we sat down together, our fingers touching. In actuality, what I intended was to express my desire to offer my services in this capacity. I am eager to move ahead. Olivia, you are making the correct choice. Sonia smiled warmly and reassured after a brief pause. I know it's not even though it feels that way. You can get your life back if you do this, trust me. The following morning, the formal complaint, Amoint, was filed. It was on that very day that my phone went off. Unanswered calls, a number of texts, every one of my clan members. Lacey, my dear. Oliva, what on earth are you doing? I can't pay for Harry's tuition, and now there's talk of freezing my account. Are you genuinely pursuing this for financial gain? To my mom. Now what are you going to do? Authorities raided the house. The neighbors might have something to say about it. Your behavior is bringing shame on this family. Remove the report right away. Your dad is afraid he might faint from his tight chest. So Dad, silent, a moment frozen in time. A rummaged living room and open drawers reveal a message that reads, "Are you happy now?" Written by hand. My body trembled as I stared at the TV. Chris was very careful to watch over me. Now what are you going to do? I took a long breath. Some words were tapped out by me. Take a moment to address each individual. I will not return to the person who allowed herself to be used. The responsibility is squarely on your shoulders. After sending it, I turned off my phone. That afternoon, someone came pounding on my flat door. When I opened it, Lacey was standing there, her angry eyes stained with makeup. Her sleep-deprived face spoke it all. Under her breath, she murmured Olivia's name and said, "What's up? What is the reason for your behavior?" It took me a while to reply. Calmly, I said, "I'll call Chris if you want to talk. We may even meet in person to have the conversation." After saying, "Oh, I knew it," she snapped. "He's the one. Presently, he has authority over you. Your family used to be important to you." "I still do," I said, my voice shaking. "But when it comes to my compassion for you, this in no way suggests that I should put up with being exploited." She stepped forward. "Nobody stole from us. We only asked for help. We needed it more than you do. Nicholas is now facing the possibility of losing his job. My mom is in a state of complete disarray. You have destroyed it all." Looking at her, I stared. I got angry and said aloud, "Have you ever crossed my mind, Harry and Margaret? Have I even thought about them? I have never stopped thinking about other people. Did anybody here ever think about me when you took my money? Exactly when were you calling me? When did you engage in dishonest behavior?" She seemed pale. "You've changed," she whispered affectionately. I managed to remain calm. "Yes, I have changed. The reason for this is that I am tired of being used. Leaving silently, she left. Subsequently, I stayed still beside the glass. Chris came up behind me and threw an embrace my way. "Is your form satisfactory?" he asked softly. "Honestly," I said, "I am not sure, but I am starting to wonder if I will still be." 3 days after I submitted the complaint, I got a call. Even though I didn't know the number, I could identify the voice as soon as it spoke. "Oh, Olivia." My father's quiet voice belonged to him. "I feel weary." "Hey, what's going on?" he asked, she remarked. The air was charged with a subtle but perceptive question. "The house was searched by the police," he said. "Someone stole my laptop. Your mom is going crazy. She's crying uncontrollably, your sister. Nicholas's job was fired. The bank says our mortgage account might be frozen right now. Is that what you intend?" Initially, I was shy about speaking. Following that, I said, "All of this is because of what you did." "Not me, of course." There was silence. "The next step is to exhale deeply. Our daughter, you are no longer ours." He spoke without showing any emotion. The sound of a door slamming. "This family found out that you abandoned them. We will not be inviting you back." Unfortunately, the link failed. Standing in the kitchen, my eyes locked into the wall. I held the phone in my other hand. Into the room came Chris. He looked at me, but he didn't ask. He merely took me in his arms. Against all odds, I managed to keep my cool. I failed to hear a scream. Nonetheless, at the same time that something inside of me burst, it also regenerated. Afterwards that evening, Sonia contacted. She had insider knowledge. According to what she told Olivia, Amelia and Travis Walker have been formally charged with unlawful access and money theft. While your parents are still being probed for conspiracy, the prosecution has not discovered sufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges against them. I nodded and tried to absorb it all. A temporary restraining order has also been requested by us, with any chance the court will approve. Next week there will be a preliminary hearing, she repeated. Hers was the only recipient of my barely audible word of thanks. A cup of hot tea was placed in front of me by Chris. In a low voice he said, "Tea." A pained, "Hold still." My hands were firmly planted on the cup as I stared down into the bubbling liquid below. "I was turned down," I explained. Unfazed, Chris continued. "He said, you didn't ruin the family. Truly, he claimed that the family ruined you the moment they betrayed you." He was right. However, the agony was unbearable. I saw a figure leaning against a brick wall as I left my building the next morning on my way to work. Lacey was the one. Her fatigue showed. Her eyes widened, and she looked almost crazed. "So what is it that you desire?" I said, keeping my distance. She reprimanded, "You really must resolve this," as her jaw clenched. We had our account stopped, and now even groceries is too expensive. The police returned and questioned Travis as the kids looked on. "The issue was not my problem," I said. "No longer." She moved closer to him. "Are you even somewhat aware of the impact this is having on Mom?" "What about Dad? What about Zach? You're destroying the family dynamic. Your condescending laughing and promise that I will make it back in no time after you embezzled my funds are examples of what I mentioned." Lacey was now struggling for breath. "I don't recognize you. You've changed. I was surprised you would go to such extreme lengths," she burst out angrily. "You're right," I said logically, as my old self would have chosen to keep quiet. But that was then and this is now. Walking away silently, she continued on her way. The next night, Zach showed back up at our door. Truthfully, he now looks different, pale and worn. With the words I heard, he proceeded. "Admit him," I nodded in agreement. While seated, he made the comment, "I didn't want to believe it would come to this." However, he couldn't help but acknowledge, that he had a hand in enabling their conduct. Starting with Zach, I started. This is what I was anticipating, but I kept quiet since I knew they were planning a theft, and he cut off our chat suddenly with a refusal. Please don't protect me. Massaging his face with both hands, he leaned forward, thrilling as hell, worried about ruining the wedding, fearful of parting with them. You didn't manage to hold on to them, though. Also, you were unyielding. I choose not to respond. Upon meeting mine, he began to cry. I am more than happy to assist you. I am prepared to give my evidence at any hearing that is called for. I will tell them the truth. My throat tightened. Oh, really, Isk? After our discussion, they already hate me, he said. Do what's right, I suppose. Zach felt a delicate tap on the shoulder from Chris. A simple thank you was his only response. Arriving at the courthouse for the preliminary hearing in a dress that had been collecting dust in my wardrobe for years was my choice of attire. It made no difference how I looked, but when I dressed for purpose, I felt much more grounded. From across the room, we could see Travis and Lacey, who were sitting stiffly by their attorney. Standing tall behind them was my mother. My dad didn't show up. Zach arrived 10 minutes later. After nodding to me, he crossed over to the other side, by me. As the court began to call on potential witnesses, Zach rose to his feet. I am here, he announced. He then began to speak. Clearly it is, rather modestly. They benefited from his expertise, his chance overhearing of certain conversations, our mother and Lacey's statements, how carelessly they dealt with it. Zach looked more like his older brother than he has in the past, like a watchdog. As he finished speaking, the courtroom fell into a profound silence. The evidence that Sonia submitted before the judge included bank statements, login logs, correspondence, screenshots, and a written complaint. From my bank's fraud division, the court has announced the granting of a temporary restraining order. The Walkers, Travis and Amelia, are facing formal charges. A trial date is set to take place in 60 days. I could feel my pulse pounding. As we walked out of the courthouse, I felt like someone was staring at me. Away I turned, extremely fragile. There was more to her expression than just rage. Terrified, was it? She could see it clearly. Finally, she understood. No shot was fired to signal danger. Everything was righted. Later that evening, Chris took me out to a charming restaurant just outside of town for dinner. We dined under warm lighting, accompanied by the mellow melodies of jazz. His parents were also there. The journey from Eugene was worth it just to see us. His mother, Estella, held to my arm for a little longer than I had expected, assuring him, "You're officially a member of our family." She offered comfort. My tears fell directly into my eyes. "Family means taking care of each other," she said in her final remarks. Desiring nothing from one another, immobilized, all I could do was nod. For the first time in weeks, I had a decent night's sleep without having to gasp for air. Even so, I was bereaved, in the process of getting well now. No, there were others besides myself. It was also not anything I was embarrassed of. Certainly not right now. When I was leaving my workplace a few days later, I saw that someone had already waited outside. Zach was there. Even though he looked exhausted and slept poorly, the man's shoulders seemed solid, as though he had finally resolved his issue. He said that the trial date had supposedly been set. I nodded in agreement. Instead of ignoring me, "Olivia, I just wanted to thank you for giving me the chance to make the right decision." I said something along the lines of, "You did more than that, since you were the one who finally spoke up. And now everything is riding on that." With a faint smile, he withdrew from me and said, "No matter what, I will be here." After he left, I walked the short distance home and stopped to check the mailbox in the lobby of our building. In the midst of the invoices and junk mail, one envelope with an unfamiliar handwriting stood out. Herewith was enclosed a letter, my beloved companion, Olivia. My name is Marty Daniels, and I was Travis's cousin. We ran into one other at 2 different family reunions a few years ago, although I highly doubt that you remember our final chat. I am so grateful for everything you've done. Thank you. That is all I have to say. I can relate. My parents exploited my credit to create accounts, and my brother used it to take out loans. When I tried to intercede, they accused me of being self-centered and lacking compassion. It wasn't until I heard your story that I understood I'd lost permission. Please stand up from your seat so I can decline. Just enough. You shown remarkable bravery and love in your acts. Being strong is yours to keep, and you proved that protecting yourself does not mean being cruel. Sure, I'm grateful to you. Marty was that guy. Word after word, my eyesight was foggy from sobbing as I read it out loud on the elevator. I was no longer the only one it had become about. Family means sacrifice became a mantra that many quietly adopted and even embraced, and what happened and what they did was not a unique instance. Nevertheless, a love that does not respect its object is unrelated. So there you have it, emotional blackmail posing as a Sunday dinner. 2 weeks before, to the trial, Chris sent a nice surprise. The lake glistened in the soft amber light as the golden hour began, and the warm air caressed my face. I had no clue this lakeside location existed until he led us there, away from the city. We walked up to a little table set up next to a wooden pier, which had 2 dishes, candles, and a candlestick. The question came out with a grin, but my stomach was in knots. "Just what is this?" I inquired nonetheless. "Supper," Chris whispered into my hand. "In honor of you." We stood still. After that, we had dinner. We made everyone around us chuckle. The sky became purple as Chris got to his feet, changing its color from golden to lavender. Afterwards, he bent down to kneel. Shock paralyzed me. Over the past few months, he had seen as you faced challenges. Your ability to fall, get back up, and then climb again is something I've seen firsthand. You valued sticking up for justice more than protecting your own interests. He took out a little velvet box from his pocket and opened it. On the inside, plain, elegant, shimmering. "Olivia Morgan, would you intend to wed me?" A tear formed in my eye. Feeling down, no. Upon getting back on your feet, upon release. Reason being faith. I said yes, but my voice was faint, simply said yes. All appeared to change as he stood up and planted a kiss on my lips. Less weight. At home, Sonia had some news to share with us. The trial is scheduled to begin. Amelia and Travis are scheduled to make an appearance next week. A suspended sentence or full compensation may be sought by the prosecution. Responsibility persists despite the fact that their criminal record makes incarceration appear unlikely. I nodded in agreement. Later that night, I received yet another message in my inbox, presented to me by my father. "Hi, Anna, your behavior has caused immense pain to this family. Poor sleep hygiene is affecting your mom. Because of the stress, your sister is sick. No one knows who is managing our case, but attorneys and total strangers. You have embarrassed me." I read the message word by word. I took it off thereafter. I had finally broken free from the grip of shame. Just the truth. I was suitably attired in a navy blue suit on the morning of my trial. Absolute must. Sharp. At the courthouse, Zach greeted us. Sonia was calm and collected as she stood at our side. In silence, Travis and Amelia waited inside as their attorney spoke with them. It seemed as if they were very small. As soon as the judge entered the room, everyone stood up. An individual had the case read aloud. The claims: intrusion into protected computer networks, financial fraud, individual risk of injury. We made the proof available. The bank has reported fraud. History of user logins. Periods of time are modified. Under oath, Zach's testimony is formally submitted. It is I who am making the comment. How did they plead? Amelia muttered. Their verdict was guilty. At his heels was Travis. They begged for leniency because of their client's lack of a criminal record, financial difficulties, and the fact that they had 2 children. The judge carefully reviewed all of the papers, and then he spoke. The defendants are sentenced to 3 years probation for the crimes of unauthorized access and financial theft. The person occupying Amelia's chair slouched. Travis wasn't looking. They were sentenced to repay $9,200 to the victim, in addition to paying $5,000 in damages for emotional distress, according to the court. Something took me unawares out of the blue. The victim is prohibited from having any contact with the defendants, either directly or indirectly, for a period of 5 years, according to the judge. A heavy sigh escaped me. My lungs hadn't been fully inflated for months. The morning's hazy light greeted us as we exited the courthouse. The wind is refreshing. Clean it well. Chris embraced me. Are you in good form? I nodded in agreement. I'm feeling better now. Later that week, Sonia wrote me a note to follow up. To pay off the debt the court had already approved, selling off Amelia and Travis's assets. They could no longer access their funds. His company had formally terminated Nicholas's employment following his conviction. It may be their house after that. Someone seemed to tug on my chest for an instant. Relativity is irrelevant. Maybe sadness, considering the possibilities that were there. Afterwards, Chris's comments came back. This is the result of their actions. Please don't take offense. He was right, as we sipped our wine on the balcony and listened to the city below. I said the following that night. I regained more than just financial stability. I also regained my very identity. Chris smiled and gestured. It will be protected from theft forever. It had been 60 days since the trial. Time and again, repayment was due. Afterwards, the enforcement orders were put into action. The first person to get in touch with us was Sonia. She made the announcement that collecting had begun. Someone has banned Amelia and Travis's accounts. A variety of assets, including vehicles, electronics, and personal belongings, are being seized. The victim, who happens to be you, will be compensated by the court. Chris took a seat next to me and started going through his email. In his opinion, Nicholas appears to have been let go. As a matter of domestic policy, they will not hire anyone with a history of financial crimes. My nod came slowly, and the house. We are still reviewing it, she said. However, foreclosure is highly probable due to their outstanding mortgage balance and frozen accounts. Lounging on the couch, I closed my eyes. It was hardly a feeling of victory for me, but I also didn't feel shattered. Even while there was no joy in their misery, knowing that consequences would follow helped bring some peace. That justice was more than just an idea. Putting it into practice is doable. I sensed it. That Saturday, we set out in search of a tranquil brunch spot in Forest Park. We settled on a new favorite, your run-of-the-mill joint, with plenty of windows and honey-colored wood tables. As I sipped my coffee, my phone started making noises. I hadn't come across Marty Daniels' name in quite a while. She contacted me via email. I express my gratitude one more. Salutations. Olivia. Thank you for your support. Last month I stopped sending money to my brother, and the news that he had proclaimed me dead to him did not break me for the first time. Your story has inspired me, and I realize that you are still dealing with the fallout from your personal tragedy. But I wanted you to know that, just like me, you weren't fighting for yourself. You were fighting for other people. I am grateful to you. Greetings, Marty. Even though my heart was hurting, in a nice way, all I could do was stare at the TV. Of course, I wasn't just protecting myself. It was impactful. This was significant. I sat on the living room floor with Chris later that night as we flipped through old photographs, the type I'd kept in crates for years but never looked at before. As I held up a college photo of Lacey and myself, I couldn't help but laugh. She slouched, and I instinctively covered my mouth with my palm. I used to think that moment was pure, was all I meant to say in terms of tone. With a stoop, Chris peered over at it. He went on to say, before everything else, it was likely. It would be great if we could return, I whispered. He spoke a whispered, but we can't, before continuing. And to be honest, might that be acceptable? From his own belongings, he took out a small picture book. Inside, you can see pictures of the two of us hiking, cooking, and having fun in low light, a distinct familial unit. We own it. Shortly after that, we went to see Chris's parents in Eugene. Estella welcomed me with open arms when I arrived. There is plenty of food for following meals. I made the dish you love. She smiled. Chicken with lemon. The air was filled with our laughing, the kind that heals rather than steals. After supper, we walked across their yard and watched the fireflies fly under the trees. Chris took hold of my hand and yanked me away. I must ask you something, he said, making sure to look you in the eyes both times. I drew near. What do you think? According to him, we're actually making plans for the wedding. However, he insisted that they try something else first. From his pocket, he pulled out a folded sheet of paper. That was all a realty listing. Coastal region, modest cottage. We can't afford a mansion, but we do have enough money for this. It's in a quiet neighborhood, and it will be ours. A place to start over. A tear formed in my eye. I said, yes, we can begin at the beginning and make something. We sat on the porch swing later that night, covered in blankets with wine glasses in hand. Years had passed when I finally felt secure. I wasn't able to avoid physical injury because of it. Nevertheless, I had chosen to protect myself. I had drawn a line, therefore, that was the reason. They stubbornly refused to move. People who genuinely care about you would never put your dignity on the line for their own convenience. I thought I knew a family that has since disappeared. Nevertheless, I managed to secure a life. I couldn't be more satisfied.